Colombia's $400 million wake-up call. On this episode of The Indian Abroad, Columbia University concedes to President Donald Trump. Instead of continuing to fight him legally, Columbia settles and pays up, and it's not a small sum either. Namaste, hello, and welcome. You are watching The Indian Abroad with your host, me, Priyanka Deo, on NDTV World. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, as well as leave your comments below. I want to know what you think. Let's dive right into the topic of this episode. Earlier this year, the Trump administration abruptly canceled hundreds of millions in federal research grants to elite universities like Columbia University and Harvard. The administration's rationale was rooted in growing concern over campus climates. Universities were allowing environments where anti-Semitism and racial bias flourished, often justified through diversity, equity, and inclusion frameworks. Now, these tensions became more visible following the October 7th Hamas massacre. Columbia ultimately reached a compromise. $400 million in funding was reinstated after the university agreed to lift mask bans, restore campus policing powers, and place its departments of Middle East, South Asian, that's India included, or should I say anti-India in this case, and African studies under special oversight. The university also committed to paying $200 million to settle federal anti-discrimination claims, $21 million to the EEOC, and appointing a jointly selected independent monitor to oversee compliance. Now, this allowed Columbia to maintain academic autonomy without entering a full judicial consent decree. Critics here argue that Columbia, and I quote, bent the knee to political pressure. But settling for that large of an amount, if you're paying up, you're guilty. The university was pushed into this path by years of failing to address systemic issues, using federal funding as a shield from accountability. Former Harvard president Larry Summers noted Columbia's settlement likely represents the best possible outcome, and this is protected funding and autonomy with minimal legal intrusion provided the law is followed. The administration also appears to intend this framework as a precedent for future enforcement at other institutions deemed non-compliant. Now, what does this mean for Indian students? Well, first and foremost, it means enhanced campus oversight and protection. This following the fact that Columbia bent the knee to the Trump administration, a clear message has been sent to universities nationwide that it is time to seriously improve campus climates and enforce anti-discrimination laws. This crackdown benefits not only Jewish students, but also other minorities, including Indian students, who have often faced intolerance or bias on campuses. Take, for example, the troubling case of Professor Audrey Truschke, a Rutgers professor who has publicly made inflammatory and offensive statements about Hinduism, labeling it as inherently oppressive, racist, misogynistic, and violent. She's even tweeted derogatory remarks about Hindus, dismissing their beliefs and glorifying controversial historical figures like Aurangzeb, while ignoring the violent persecution Hindus suffered under his rule. Such rhetoric inevitably creates a hostile environment for Indian students who not only feel marginalized, but may also face misunderstanding or discrimination from others less familiar with their culture or religion. This is exactly how patterns of bias and hatred, similar to anti-Semitism, take root. The Trump administration's actions against Columbia signal an end to tolerance for such hostility on campuses. Enhanced oversight and enforcement mean a safer, more respectful environment where Indian students, and all minorities for that matter, can pursue their education without fear of discrimination or ideological bullying. Second, potential disruptions to research and funding institutions facing similar scrutiny may see research grants get suspended. That could impact graduate research opportunities, fellowship stipends, and institution-funded assistantships. Now, Indian students, particularly those on research visas or institutional fellowships, may encounter uncertainty if grant reversals affect program budgets. And third, a shift in campus policies and programming. Now, administrators now face incentives to reevaluate politically sensitive or ideologically driven initiatives. Academic programs or student-led groups promoting radical viewpoints may come under serious scrutiny, and this could reshape the discourse and cultural programming found on many campuses. And fourth, financial pressure and resource reallocation. Settlements and compliance costs may force universities to redirect their funds, potentially affecting scholarship resources, tuition rates, and even student services. International students who often pay full tuition might see indirect consequences, such as fewer institutional awards or higher fees. Fifth, raising expectations of university governance. Now, with public accountability measures like independent monitors and federal oversight becoming parts of post-settlement terms, university administrations overall, this is nationwide, may be held to stricter standards. For Indian and other international students, this could mean several things, including clearer grievance protocols, increased reporting transparency, and more formal channels for addressing discrimination. So what's the bottom line here? This is actually a landmark enforcement action. It marks a pivotal shift that universities can no longer rely on large federal grants as a shield for ignoring campus issues like Hinduphobia and antisemitism, intentional hate crimes with perpetrators getting away scot-free. Indian students, who make up the largest percentage of international students who choose to study in the United States of America, will be deeply affected by the outcomes, and this is both positive and unintended. Their academic experience will depend on how effectively institutions implement reforms without disrupting academic and financial stability or letting hateful ideology go uncontrolled on college campuses, ensuring that every student has got admission, or every student that has got admission and paid to be there has a positive educational experience that they deserve. Thanks for watching The Indian Abroad. Until next time, this is Priyanka Deo signing off. Namaste.